All right, ready to dive deep. Today, we're tackling a story you probably think you know, Moses and the burning bush. But trust me, we're going to go way beyond like the basic Sunday school version. We're unpacking Exodus chapter 3, and you might be surprised by what we find.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's one of those stories everyone's heard, so we kind of just gloss over it. But
Yeah.
there's so much there if you really dig in.
Exactly. So picture this, right? Moses just out there tending his flock, typical shepherd stuff near Mount Horeb. And then bam, something totally weird happens.
He sees this bush, and it's like engulfed in flames, but it's not burning up. Just keeps burning and burning. Can you imagine, like, seeing that in real life? Would be kind of freaky, right?
Yeah, not something you see every day, that's for sure. And it's not just a little fire, we're talking like totally ablaze. But the bush, it's not turning to ash or anything, so I get why Moses is drawn to it.
And that's when things get really wild. Like, a voice calls out to him. And not just any voice, right? It's God talking to him from the fire.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about making an entrance. But God doesn't tell him to come closer or anything. It's more like, whoa, hold up, Moses. Don't come any closer. Take off your sandals, buddy. You're standing on holy ground.
Okay, that thing about taking off your shoes, what's the deal with that? I mean, it's got to be more than just, keeping your sandals clean.
Oh, yeah, way more. It's a powerful symbol. Even today, in tons of cultures and religions, you take off your shoes to show you're entering a sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to approach it with, I don't know, humility, reverence.
It's like acknowledging you're on special ground, not just everyday dirt.
Right, exactly. Like, you got to be aware of where you are,
So there's Moses, barefoot on holy ground, face to face with God. Huge moment, right? And then God introduces himself, not just as like, hey, I'm God, but as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of his ancestors. What's the significance of that family connection, you think?
Oh, it's super important. It's all about connecting Moses to this huge legacy, to this covenant that's been going on for generations. Like, it's God saying, I'm not some random deity. I'm part of your family history, your heritage.
I've been here all along.
Exactly. And then, well, God lays it all out. I've seen my people suffering in Egypt. I've heard their cries. You can almost feel the empathy in those words. God's not distant or unfeeling. He's deeply affected by what's happening.
Yeah, it's powerful, like a reminder that even when things seem really bad, there's a force out there that sees it, hears it, and cares. And then comes the promise. God's going to deliver the Israelites from this misery, take them to a land, get this, flowing with milk and honey. I mean, can you imagine hearing that after years of just suffering and slavery? It must have sounded amazing.
Right. Total promise of freedom and abundance. And it gets specific, too. God names the people living in this promised land. Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites. Like, this isn't just some vague idea. It's a real place.
So we've got a burning bush, a divine revelation, and a promise of freedom. What's Moses supposed to do with all this?
Well, that's where things get, more human. God says, go and I will send you to Pharaoh. You're going to bring my people out of Egypt.
Wait, go and I will send you. Isn't that like the same thing? Seems a little redundant.
Yeah, it seems that way, right? But I think there's a double meaning. It's a call to action, like God's got the plan, but Moses has a choice to make. And it's also a promise that God's got his back. Like, I'm with you on this.
Yeah. Okay. So it's agency and support all mixed together. So does Moses jump right up and say, all right, let's go free some slaves?
Not exactly, no. This is where we see, well, it's very relatable. He hesitates. He basically says, who am I to go up against Pharaoh, the most powerful guy in Egypt? Are you sure you've got the right person for this?
Well, I mean, come on. He's a shepherd living in exile. Not exactly a military leader or some big political player. I'd have some self-doubt, too.
Exactly. It's that classic who am I moment that, like, everyone has. You get a challenge and it just seems too big and you think, can I really do this? We've all been there,
Yep.
Right? It's just so human. And that's exactly what makes this story so powerful, even today. It's about feeling overwhelmed, like doubting yourself. But it also says that, hey, even when you feel weak, you can still do incredible things.
It's like it's saying your limits don't define you, right? Like There's this potential for greatness in all of us, even if we don't see it. So how does God deal with Moses' hesitation? Does he get mad or, I don't know, try to force him into it?
Not at all, no.
Yeah.
He's actually super supportive. Like, he just says, I will be with you. Just 4 words, but they mean so much, don't they? It's like this promise of guidance, like strength, and, that he's there with Moses no matter what.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you're not in this alone. I got you. Which I bet was pretty comforting to Moses given, what he's being asked to do. But then God takes it even further, right? Gives him an actual sign, like a physical thing to, I don't know, solidify his faith.
Right. He promises that after they're free, the Israelites will worship God at this very same mountain. It's almost like a sneak peek into the future, like proof that this crazy mission will actually work. Even when things feel totally uncertain, there's a bigger plan happening, you know?
It's interesting how this story mixes like the human stuff with the divine. Moses, he's got real doubts and fears, but you can also see God's plan, God's presence kind of guiding him forward. But then Moses, ever the practical one, he's got another question. He's like, what if they ask me, the Israelites, what's his name? What am I supposed to tell them?
And that brings us to like one of the most important moments. God revealing his name. He says, I am, W-H-O-I-M. Tell them, I am has sent you.
Whoa, I am, W-H-O-I-M. That's heavy, right? People have been thinking about those words for centuries. They're so simple but so profound. What do they actually mean, though?
It's a name that says so much about God, like his eternal existence, how he's self-sufficient, unchanging. It's just pure being, existing outside of time and space. And, well, it sets him apart from all those other gods.
It's like my existence, it just is. I am.
Exactly. And God really emphasizes that this is his name forever. Like it'll be remembered for generations. That's a powerful statement, right?
Yeah.
About God's constant presence in the world.
Okay, so we got this huge name reveal. What happens next? Does God just send Moses off to Pharaoh with a, good luck, pat on the back?
Not quite. God's pretty specific about what needs to happen. Like, he tells Moses, go gather the elders of Israel, tell them about, the promise of freedom. And then he's got to go to Pharaoh with a particular request.
Okay, what's the request? Does he just, straight up say, let my people go?
Not right away, no. God says to ask for a 3-day journey into the wilderness. They're going to offer sacrifices to God. It's strategic, Mm-hmm. Like, God really understands Pharaoh's personality.
Because he already knows Pharaoh's going to say no, right? He even tells Moses, the king of Egypt, he's not going to let you go, not even with a mighty hand.
Exactly. God's not sugarcoating it. He's laying out the challenge. But you can also hear, there's going to be some serious power coming into play.
So this isn't going to be some easy negotiation, huh? Definitely sounds like we're heading for a conflict. Pharaoh versus God, the ultimate showdown. What else does God tell Moses about what's coming?
He promises to step in, he says he'll stretch out his hand, literally intervene, and, hit Egypt with some wonders. Miracles, basically. The kind that even Pharaoh can't ignore.
Okay, so plagues are coming. Sounds a lot more like the Exodus story we know, right? But God's not done with the promises, is he?
Nope, not even close. He assures Moses that they won't just be free, they'll leave with, tons of riches. Think about that. From slaves to a nation walking out with treasure.
Talk about an exit, right? It's amazing how much happens in just this one chapter. We've gone from a burning bush to, a crazy mission, divine promises, and, hints of all the challenges and miracles to come. It's a lot to process.
It's a huge chapter for sure. It lays the groundwork for the whole Exodus story. But beyond the plot, what really gets me is how it talks about leadership, faith, and, the fight for freedom. Those ideas are just as powerful today as they were back then.
For sure. And I think it's so cool how it blends the human and the divine. We see God's power, but we also see Moses, and he's so relatable. He has doubts, feels inadequate, the whole deal.
Yeah, he gets chosen for this amazing mission. But he's not, instantly some fearless superhero. He's still human with all the, the struggles and the messiness that comes with that.
Exactly. And maybe that's why people connect with this story so much, even after all these years. It reminds us that even the people who are called to do great things, they're still just people. They have doubts, they question, they struggle. But it's through those struggles that they grow, that they become the leaders they're meant to be.
Right. Being human doesn't mean you can't do great things. Maybe it's what helps us connect with others, inspire them, and lead with, empathy.
Yeah, you get it because you've been there.
Yeah.
And you know what else strikes me about this burning bush encounter? It shows how important it is to ask questions. Moses doesn't just blindly follow God's orders. He wants to understand, He's not afraid to have a real conversation with God.
Yeah, he's not just passively taking orders. He's involved. And that's such a good example for us, right? We're not supposed to just blindly follow. We should question, try to understand, have that dialogue. And in that process, when we're questioning, seeking, we often find new things, new perspectives that we would have totally missed otherwise. It's like peeling back layers of meaning, getting a deeper understanding.
So as we wrap up this part of our dive into Exodus chapter 3, what really sticks with you about this whole encounter? Especially knowing that, this is just the beginning for Moses. He's got a long way to go.
It really is, yeah. Like, we think about the burning bush itself, right? It's not burning up even though it's on fire. It survives.
Oh, yeah, good point.
It's a powerful image, like resilience, strength, even when things are rough. Like saying, even if you go through tough times, you come out maybe not totally unscathed, but stronger.
I like that, yeah. Challenges don't break you, they kind of refine you.
Exactly. And we talk about God revealing his name, right? I am, WHO, I am. It's this declaration of, like, pure being, eternal. And people have been in awe of that name for, like, forever. But what's cool about this story is how it mixes that divine aspect with, the very human parts.
Right, you see God's power, yeah. But then there's Moses, and his struggles are so, like, normal.
Yeah, like he's chosen for this huge task.
Yeah.
But he doesn't suddenly become some perfect, fearless hero.
Yeah.
He's still just a guy, with all the doubts and weaknesses that come with being human.
I think that's why this story still resonates with people. It's like, even those who are called to do great things, they're still just like us. They have doubts, they question, they struggle. And it's through those struggles that they grow, that they become the leaders they're meant to be.
It's like saying being human doesn't disqualify you from greatness. In fact, maybe it's what makes you able to connect with others, inspire them, lead with understanding, because you've been there.
Exactly. And this whole encounter at the burning bush, it also shows how important it is to ask questions. Moses, he doesn't just blindly accept God's command,
Yeah.
He asks for clarification. He wants to understand the details. Like, he really wrestles with what it all means. He's not afraid to, have a real back and forth with God.
Right. He's not just taking orders. He's participating in the conversation. And that's such a good model for all of us, We're not meant to just blindly follow. We should question. We should seek understanding. Have that dialogue.
And in that process, when we're questioning, seeking, we discover new things, perspectives we might have missed if we hadn't, dug a little deeper. It's like we're uncovering new layers of meaning.
Exactly. Like deepening our understanding, getting closer to the truth of things.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Exodus chapter 3, what really stands out to you about this encounter, especially knowing what happens next in the Exodus story? This is just the beginning of Moses' journey.
What gets me is how this story, it's so ancient, right? But it still speaks to us today. It's about leadership, faith, the struggle for freedom themes that are like just as relevant now as they were thousands of years ago. Think about Moses at the beginning, his "who am I" moment. Have you ever felt like that? Like, not equipped for a challenge, unsure if you can actually make a difference?
Oh, yeah. I think we've all been there. That feeling of, like, this is too big for me. Do I even have what it takes?
But then Moses, with God's help, he goes on this incredible journey, leads his people to freedom. And it makes you wonder, what seemingly impossible tasks are we being called to? What's that thing that we're hesitant to do that feels too big, maybe even a little scary? What if that's our own burning bush moment? Calling us to something greater.
That's a powerful thought. Like, maybe the things we shy away from, the ones that feel too daunting, are actually the paths to our greatest potential.
Right. And maybe those moments, they're not marked by actual flames or, voices from the sky, but it could be that quiet feeling inside, that sense of urgency that you can't ignore it.
And maybe the key is just being aware, listening to that voice inside, and being willing to say yes, even if you don't fully understand where it's leading you.
Because who knows, right? Maybe, just maybe, the cave we're most afraid to enter, that's where the real treasure is.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this question. What's your burning bush moment? And are you ready to step into flames? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Exodus chapter 3. We'll see you next time.